I never thought I'd be that guy, the one everyone whispers about in the break room. The cautionary tale, the corporate casualty. But there I was, standing in an auditorium, packed with my colleagues, my hands still half raised, as my entire professional identity collapsed around me. My name is Matthew Klein. For 9 years I was the Director of Systems at East Tech Solutions, one of the largest technology firms on the East Coast. Not the flashiest title, but it was mine. I built that department from 4 people to 40. I weathered 3 CEOs, 2 acquisitions, and countless strategic pivots. I was the constant, the foundation everyone took for granted until the building started to shake. That Friday morning was supposed to be like any other town hall. We'd been having them monthly since Derek Holloway took over as CEO last year. He called them transparency sessions, a fancy term for carefully scripted propaganda with a veneer of openness. To continue hearing this beautiful and special story, leave your like and subscribe to the channel. Write your name and the city you're watching from so I can include a special greeting for you in my next story. Derek paced the stage with that practiced CEO stride. Blue suit, no tie, sleeves rolled up to show he was one of us. The quarterly numbers flashed behind him on the giant screen, all carefully massaged to look better than they were. I knew the real numbers. As Director of Systems, very little happened without crossing my desk in some form. And that's why I'm proud to announce we're still on track for our end-of-year targets. Derek concluded with a rehearsed smile. Now, in the spirit of transparency, let's open the floor for questions. That's when I made the mistake that would end my career at East Tech. I raised my hand. Matthew, our systems guru, what's on your mind? I stood up, my voice steady, despite the anxiety bubbling in my chest. The budget projections show a 30% reduction in technical staff. That's not resource allocation. That's gutting our infrastructure team. How do we maintain security protocols with a skeleton crew? The room went silent. Derek's smile tightened. He exchanged a quick glance with Vanessa Reeves, our new Well, Matthew, Derek said, drawing out my name like it was suddenly foreign to him. That's actually a perfect segue into our next announcement. In the spirit of full transparency, Derek continued, his voice taking on a somber tone that didn't match the glint in his eyes. We're making some structural changes, effective immediately. As part of our commitment to evolving with the industry, we're streamlining our systems department. Matthew, your position has been eliminated. Vanessa will be overseeing a consolidated IT and systems division moving forward. There it was, 9 years gone in a sentence. For transparency's sake, he added with what I can only describe as cruel emphasis, we wanted to address this openly, rather than behind closed doors. Security will escort you to collect your belongings. 2 security guards, guys whose systems I had personally set up, were already walking toward me. The badge reader on my hip buzzed, signaling its deactivation. The walk to my office was the longest of my life. 9 years reduced to the contents of a cardboard box and a 15-minute countdown supervised by security. Rick and Tomas, the guards assigned to my corporate execution, maintained a respectful distance as I unlocked my office door for the last time. 15 minutes, Matt. Rick reminded me. Standard protocol. Standard protocol. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had written half of those protocols. What nobody noticed was my right hand typing a specific sequence on my keyboard, while my left hand ostentatiously placed items in the box. 23 keystrokes, executed from muscle memory. Not a system shutdown. Not yet, just a timer. A digital fuse, silently beginning its countdown. Do I need to turn in my laptop? I asked, knowing the answer. Yeah, sorry, company property, Tomas said, shifting uncomfortably. I nodded, unplugging it. Of course, let me just log out. Another sequence, 17 keystrokes this time. To the observers, it looked like a normal logout procedure. In reality, I had just authorized my home system to accept a remote connection from a ghost server I'd established years ago. Not for sabotage, for protection. In my 9 years at East Tech, I had seen 5 system directors before me exit, each one escorted out with similar ceremony, each one's access cut immediately, and each one blamed within weeks for some system failure they could no longer defend themselves against. I had vowed never to be so vulnerable. As we approached the main exit, I saw Vanessa waiting, arms crossed. Of course she would be there to witness my final departure. Matthew, she acknowledged coldly, I'll need a verbal confirmation that you understand the terms of your separation. No contact with employees, no access to systems, and strict adherence to your non-disclosure agreement. I understand the terms. I said evenly. 9 years, and that's all I get. Not even a private conversation. The decision was made at the highest level. We're moving in a different direction. Different direction, I repeated. Interesting euphemism for public humiliation. Vanessa straightened, corporate mask firmly back in place. Your severance package is generous. 2 weeks for every year of service. The details will be emailed to your personal account. 18 weeks of pay for 9 years of my life. The math felt wrong, but I just nodded. With that I walked past her, through the glass doors, and into the bright midday sun. The security guards stayed behind. Their job was done. I was officially outside the perimeter. What Vanessa, Derek, and the entire East Tech leadership didn't realize was that while they had followed their standard procedure, I had activated mine. The countdown had begun the moment my fingers touched that keyboard. Not out of malice, but out of foresight. As I placed my box in the trunk of my car, I checked my watch. 5 hours until the backup lockdown protocol would activate. 5 hours for someone at East Tech to notice the warning signs, do the right thing, and follow proper security procedure. I almost hoped they would. Almost. My apartment felt foreign when I walked in that afternoon. A space I paid for but barely lived in. This wasn't a home. It was a charging station. For a human who spent most of his life elsewhere. I sat down at my home office, the one room in my apartment that actually felt lived in. 3 monitors connected to a custom-built PC with more computing power than most small companies. This was my real domain, not the sterile office they had just escorted me from. I entered a long password, then a secondary authentication code. My system hummed to life, displaying a dashboard of my own design. Not East Tech property, my creation. My rules. The countdown timer appeared in the corner of the screen. 4:27:30. I could still stop it, enter the kill code, and terminate the backup lockdown protocol before it activated. Part of me, the part still loyal to the company that had just betrayed me, wanted, but another part, the part that had watched in humiliation as I was discarded in front of everyone, wanted to let it run, not for revenge, for accountability. I drafted an email to Derek explaining the situation but closed it without sending. They wouldn't believe me anyway. They would see it as a threat, not as the warning it was meant to be. Besides, if they were following proper security protocols, the ones I had implemented and documented meticulously, they would have already detected the initial triggers of the backup lockdown protocol. But they would. That was the point. They had never taken security as seriously as I did. That's why I created the protocol in the first place. My phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail, then it rang again. Immediately, and again. Finally I answered. Matthew Klein. Matt, it's Vanessa. Her voice was tight, controlled. We need to talk. So they had noticed something after all. Faster than I expected. I'm listening. There's an issue with the system authentication protocol. The technical team says you're the only one who fully understands the architecture. I almost laughed. Is that so? The same technical team that was going to be reduced by 30%. What do you want, Matt? What do I want? I repeated, watching the countdown continue on my screen. I want what anyone wants. Dignity, respect, acknowledgement of my contributions. If this is about money, it's not about money. I cut her off. It's about how you treat people. How you discarded 9 years of loyalty. What? A good quarterly earnings call. A dramatic town hall moment. Matt, whatever's happening with the systems, if you're involved, there could be serious legal consequences. There it was, the threat. I'm not doing anything to the systems. Vanessa, I've been home since you escorted me out. Check the log. Then why are we seeing warning signs of a system-wide authentication reset? Sounds like you should have consulted with your director of systems before eliminating the position. I said calmly. By 6 p.m. my apartment had become command central for a crisis I wasn't officially part of. My personal phone had 27 missed calls. My email inbox was flooded. Even my rarely used social media accounts had direct messages from increasingly desperate East Tech employees. I sat on my couch, laptop balanced on my knees, monitoring the situation through backdoor diagnostic tools I'd created years ago. Not to spy, to protect. The distinction felt important, even now. The backup lockdown protocol was functioning exactly as designed. First, it had flagged unusual access pattern changes, specifically the mass transfer of my security credentials. Then, it had initiated a series of subtle system checks that would normally require director-level approval. When those checks went unacknowledged because the person who should acknowledge them had been fired, the system escalated to the next security level. My laptop pinged with an incoming email from Amy Chen, my former deputy. Matt, it's chaos here. Nobody can figure out what's happening. Systems are throwing security exceptions nobody's seen before. Derek is furious. Vanessa keeps saying you've sabotaged us. I know that's not true, but I don't know what to tell them. What's going on? I sighed. Amy deserved better than to be caught in the crossfire. I typed a careful response. Amy, I haven't sabotaged anything. What you're seeing is the backup lockdown protocol, a security measure I implemented after the Jenkins breach. It's designed to prevent unauthorized system access changes. Check the emergency documentation in the Secure Repository, Section 7.3. The override procedure is there. They would check Section 7.3 and find a detailed protocol requiring CEO authorization and an independent security audit, exactly what I had designed it to require. Not impossible to fulfill, just impossible to sweep under the rug. My phone rang again. Derek. This time, not Vanessa. Matt. His voice was strained, the confident CEO persona cracking around the edges. We need to resolve this situation immediately. Which situation is that? I asked, even though I knew. Don't play games. The systems are locking down. It says it's some protocol you implemented without proper authorization. I had to laugh at that. Without proper authorization. I was the director of systems, Derek. Systems security was literally my job description. The protocol was documented and approved 3 years ago, after the Jenkins breach almost sank the company. What do you want to stop this, Matt? Name your price. The countdown on my laptop showed 1:27:33. Less than 90 minutes until complete lockdown. It's not about money, Derek. It's about accountability. Fine, we handled your exit poorly. I apologize. Is that what you want to hear? An apology is a start, I said, surprised he'd offered even that much. But what I want is a formal acknowledgement that my termination was handled inappropriately and a comprehensive security audit by an independent third party. You can't be serious. We don't have time for an audit. Actually, you do. The backup lockdown protocol doesn't destroy data. It just makes it inaccessible until proper security procedures are followed. The company can survive a few days of limited system access. This borders on criminal. Matt. Computer fraud carries serious penalties. It's not fraud, Derek. It's a documented security protocol that activates when proper procedures aren't followed. Check with legal. Diana can confirm the documentation exists. I need the override code, he finally said. We'll discuss your other demands after we've restored system access. That's not how this works, I replied calmly. The protocol was designed specifically to prevent override without proper security verification. It's all or nothing. At exactly 7:30 p.m., right on schedule, the backup lockdown protocol completed its final sequence. My laptop displayed a simple message. Protocol active. I didn't need fancy alerts to know what was happening at East Tech. I could picture it perfectly. Screens freezing, authentication requests failing, emergency tickets flooding the help desk system. Not chaos, just ordered, methodical security lockdown. My doorbell rang. I approached the door cautiously and checked the peephole. Amy Chen stood in the hallway, holding a paper bag. I opened the door, genuinely surprised. Amy, what are you doing here? She gave me a tired smile. Bringing you dinner. And escaping the madhouse. She held up the bag. Thai food. Still your favorite, right? How did you know where I live? HR records, she said with a shrug. I might have looked before they locked everything down. Should you be here? Won't you get in trouble? Amy laughed, a short, bitter sound. Matt, the entire company is in trouble right now. Nobody's keeping track of where I am. She began unpacking containers. Besides, I told them I was going to try to talk some sense into you. And are you? I asked, getting plates from the cabinet. She looked at me, her expression serious. No, I'm here to thank you. That wasn't what I expected. Thank me for locking down the company, for standing up for what's right. She opened a container of pad thai, the aromatic steam filling my kitchen. What they did to you was wrong. Everyone knows it. Everyone except Derek and Vanessa. I said, handing her a plate. Oh, they know it too. They just didn't think there would be consequences. She served herself some food, then passed the container to me. Now they know better. My phone buzzed with a text from Vanessa. Legal has reviewed the protocol documentation. We're prepared to move forward with the acknowledgement and audit. Can you come to the office? I showed Amy the message. What do you think, trap? She considered it. Probably not. They're desperate. Trading desk can't function without systems access, and Monday morning is less than 72 hours away. I typed back. I'll come in tomorrow morning. Have the acknowledgement ready for Derek's signature and an independent auditor on standby. Saturday morning dawned clear and bright. The Uber dropped me at East Tech's gleaming headquarters at 8:45 a.m. The building looked different somehow. Still imposing, but no longer mine. I approached the main entrance, wondering if my badge would work. It didn't, of course. I had to sign in as a visitor, providing ID to the weekend security guard who had never seen me before. He handed me a visitor badge. White, not the blue of employees. I clipped it to my shirt, feeling its unfamiliar weight. 24 hours ago, I had been escorted out of this building. Now I was walking back in, but everything had changed. The elevator ride was silent. Just me and my reflection in the polished metal doors. The man looking back at me seemed different, more confident, less anxious. I realized I was standing straighter than I had in years. The 10th floor was executive territory, a place I had visited only for important meetings. As the doors opened, I saw Vanessa waiting, arms crossed, face carefully neutral. In the conference room, Derek was seated at the head of the table, surrounded by a small group. Diana from legal, two people I recognized as senior technical staff, and Amy, who gave me the smallest of nods when our eyes met. Diana slid a document across the table. The acknowledgement as specified in the protocol documentation. Mr. Holloway has reviewed it. I picked it up, scanning the text. It was exactly as I had written it years ago. A formal acknowledgement that security protocols had been violated, requiring immediate independent audit and verification. And the auditor? I asked, looking up from the paper. Deloitte team is on standby. Diana confirmed. They can begin as soon as systems access is restored. Derek finally looked at me directly. And then what, Matt? What's your endgame here? My endgame was ensuring proper security procedures were followed. I said simply. Once they are, my involvement ends. Just like his skepticism was evident. You lock down a $4 billion company, force us into an expensive audit, damage our reputation with clients, and then what? Walk away. I considered his question carefully. Yes, because this was never about me, Derek. It was about the systems, all of them, including how you treat people who've dedicated years to this company. Derek glared at the document like it might bite him. And if I refuse, then the systems remain locked, I said simply. The protocol is very clear on the requirement. We could bring legal action, Vanessa suggested. Computer fraud, corporate sabotage. Diana shook her head slightly. Actually, our position would be complicated. The protocol is fully documented in our security procedures. It was implemented with proper approval from previous leadership, and Matt hasn't accessed any systems since his termination. The protocol activated automatically based on parameters set years ago. With a sharp movement, Derek snatched up the pen, scrawled his signature across the bottom of the document, and shoved it toward me. There, satisfied. I didn't touch the paper. I don't need to be satisfied. The protocol just needs to be followed. I turned to the technical staff. The system will detect the signed acknowledgement once it's uploaded to the secure repository. Section 17. Then my work here is done. 3 days passed, with surprising tranquility. No legal threats materialized. No angry phone calls from Derek or Vanessa. Just silence, broken only by occasional updates from Amy about the audit's progress. Deloitte team found 7 critical vulnerabilities in the first day. She texted on Monday afternoon. Derek is pretending to be concerned but mostly looks constipated. My phone rang just after noon on Wednesday. Diana from legal. Matt, how are you? Her voice was friendly but professional. Fine, I replied cautiously. What can I do for you, Diana? The board has called an emergency meeting regarding the audit findings. They've requested your presence. That was unexpected. My presence? Why? The preliminary audit report is concerned. They want your perspective on the vulnerability identified and recommended remediation steps. The next day, I arrived at East Tech 15 minutes early. As the boardroom doors opened, I was greeted by an unexpected sight. Not just the board members I had expected, but Derek and Vanessa, seated at the far end of the table, both looking distinctly uncomfortable. Walter Chen, the board chairman, rose to greet me. Mr. Klein, thank you for joining us. Please, have a seat. I've reviewed the preliminary findings, I said, getting straight to business. The vulnerabilities identified are consistent with the concerns my team has raised over the past 3 years. Walter nodded. Yes, that much is clear from the documentation. What's less clear is why these concerns were repeatedly deprioritized. Budget constraints was the usual explanation, I replied carefully. My department's headcount was reduced by 30% over the past 2 years, while our responsibilities increased. Walter cleared his throat. Mr. Klein, we've asked you here for 2 reasons. First, to get your unfiltered assessment of our security posture, and second, to make you an offer. I raised an eyebrow. What kind of offer? We'd like you to return to EastTech as Chief Security Officer, reporting directly to the board. Full autonomy over security protocols, budget, and staffing. I couldn't hide my surprise. You want to rehire me? The audit has made it clear that our security infrastructure is in jeopardy. You built most of it. You understand it better than anyone. We need you back. Walter slid a folder toward me. The compensation package is extremely competitive. 50% increase in base salary, enhanced equity position, and a signing bonus to compensate for the unfortunate circumstances of last week. I opened the folder, scanning the numbers. They were impressive, far beyond what I had been making before. This wasn't just a job offer, it was a mea culpa with a lot of zeros attached. I appreciate the offer, I said carefully, but I have some concerns. May I have some time to consider? I asked. Walter looked surprised. Of course. We'd like an answer by Monday if possible. The audit team has emphasized the urgency of addressing our security posture. I nodded, gathering my things. I'll let you know. As the elevator doors closed, I caught one last glimpse of the floor that had been my professional home for nearly a decade. It already felt like someone else's life. I spent the weekend not thinking about EastTech's offer, which of course meant I thought about little else. By Sunday evening, I had made my decision, but I waited until Monday morning to call Walter Chen. Matthew, he answered, expectation in his voice. I hope you're calling with good news. I've made my decision, I said, skipping the pleasantries. I'm declining the offer. Silence on the line. Then, may I ask why? If it's the compensation, it's not about money, I interrupted, echoing what I had been saying all along. It's about systems. I'm not sure I follow. I took a deep breath. EastTech has a systems problem, Walter. Not just technical systems, human systems. The culture, the priorities, the way decisions are made. Giving me a bigger title and more money doesn't fix that. We're committed to making changes, he insisted. The board is taking this very seriously. Until the next quarter when numbers are down. Or until a new CEO comes in with different priorities. I've seen this cycle before. What would it take, Matthew? Name your terms. That's just it. There are no terms that fix this. The company needs structural change, not just a bigger security budget. After hanging up, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders, a tension I hadn't even realized I was carrying. For the first time in years, I had no responsibilities, no systems to maintain, no emergencies to handle. It was terrifying and exhilarating. My laptop chimed with an email notification. A recruiter from a major financial institution. Mr. Klein, your handling of the EastTech situation has not gone unnoticed. Our CISO would like to discuss potential opportunities. Your approach to security architecture is exactly the kind of thinking we value. I closed the laptop without responding. Not yet. I needed time to think, to decompress, to figure out what I actually wanted, rather than reflexively grabbing the next rung on the corporate ladder. The phone rang again. Unknown number. Matthew Klein, I answered. Matt, it's Diana from EastTech Legal. Walter told me you declined the offer. That's right. Smart move, she said, surprising me. That place is a sinking ship. Derek's been put on administrative leave pending review of the audit findings. That was unexpected. Really, the board actually acted. Had to. The vulnerabilities were too significant to ignore, and his handling of your termination gave them the perfect excuse. Why are you telling me this? I asked, genuinely curious. Because I'm leaving too, she replied. After seeing how they handled your situation, I realized I didn't want to be part of that kind of organization anymore. Life's too short. Where are you going? starting my own practice, focusing on tech ethics and employee advocacy. Which brings me to why I'm calling. I'd like to hire you as a consultant. 2 months after the town hall that ended my East Tech career, I found myself sitting in a sleek conference room in downtown Boston, facing the executive team of a mid-sized healthcare technology company. My consultation had been requested after they experienced a minor data breach, minor only because they caught it early. The technical vulnerabilities have been addressed, I explained, closing my laptop, but the organizational vulnerabilities remain. The CEO, a woman named Rebecca Torres, leaned forward. Explain what you mean by organizational vulnerabilities. Your security team identified the breach 3 weeks before it was escalated to leadership, I said. That's not a technical problem. It's a cultural one. Your security people don't feel empowered to raise alarms that might disrupt business operations. I handed out copies of my report. First, implement a no-penalty reporting system for security concerns. Second, reverse the approval chain for security escalations. Make respond the default, not wait and see. Third, rotate executives through security briefings so everyone understands the landscape. By the end of the meeting, they had approved my recommendations and scheduled follow-up sessions. As I packed up my materials, Rebecca approached me. Your approach is different from other consultants we've worked with, she observed. Less technical, more human. I nodded. Technical systems are designed by humans, operated by humans, and ultimately serve humans. Ignoring the human element is how breaches happen. The East Tech situation, she guessed. That was you, wasn't it? The systems director who locked everything down after being fired. Well, she said with a small smile, their loss is apparently our gain. We'd like to put you on retainer for quarterly assessments. 6 weeks into my new consulting practice, and I already had more work than I could handle alone. Diana had been right. There was a market for this approach. Companies were finally realizing that security wasn't just about firewalls and authentication protocols. It was about people and culture and priorities. I walked to the small co-working space I had rented. Nothing fancy, just a desk, good internet, and a coffee machine. No corner office, no corporate politics, no town halls, just me and the work that mattered. As I walked home that evening, I passed the East Tech building, still standing, still gleaming, but no longer my problem. I had heard through the grapevine that they'd hired a new security director who had immediately requested double the budget my team had operated with. The board had approved it without question. I felt no bitterness, just a quiet vindication. Sometimes systems needed to fail catastrophically before people recognized their value. My phone rang, another potential client, referred by Rebecca Torres. As I listened to their security concerns, I realized something profound. I was happier now than I had been in years, not despite losing my East Tech job, but because of it. The backup lockdown protocol had done exactly what it was designed to do, not just for East Tech systems, but for me. It had created the space for something new to emerge from something broken. 1 year to the day after the town hall that changed everything, I found myself back in the East Tech building, not as an employee, not as a consultant, but as a speaker. We're honored to have Matthew Klein joining us today, the new CTO announced to the packed auditorium. His book Human Systems, Why Security is More Than Code, has become required reading in tech circles, and his security framework has been adopted by over 50 major corporations. In the past year, I took the stage, surveying the audience. Some familiar faces, though fewer than I expected. East Tech had experienced significant turnover since the incident, as they now carefully referred to it. Thank you for having me, I began. It's interesting to be back in this auditorium. A ripple of nervous laughter. Everyone knew the story, though the official version had been sanitized for public consumption. Today I want to talk about resilience, not just of technical systems, but of the people who build and maintain them. For the next hour, I shared the insights I had gained over the past year, how organizations undermined their own security through cultural failures, how technical solutions couldn't compensate for human systems problems, how real protection required alignment of values and action. The strongest security protocol I ever created, I concluded, wasn't a piece of code. It was the decision to stand by my principles when it would have been easier not to. Security isn't just what you build, it's what you're willing to protect, even when it costs you. After the talk, the new CEO, a woman named Sandra Morgan, who had replaced Derek 6 months earlier, approached me. That was thought-provoking, Mr. Klein. Though I suspect some of our executives found it a bit pointed. I smiled. Security shouldn't be comfortable. Indeed, she handed me her card. We've implemented many changes since you left. I'd value your perspective on whether they're the right ones. As I left the building, I passed the security desk where a year ago I had surrendered my badge. Rick was still there, looking exactly the same. Miss Klein, he called out, recognition lighting his face. Good to see you, sir. You too, Rick. How's everything? He glanced around, then lowered his voice. Different. Better security protocols now. More respect for the technical teams. Your replacement made sure of that. I'm glad to hear it. My phone rang. Sandra Morgan, not waiting for me to consider her offer. Mr. Klein, I hope I'm not being too forward, but I'd like to schedule that consultation as soon as possible. We're implementing new security governance next quarter, and your input would be invaluable. I looked back at the East Tech building receding in the distance. I appreciate the offer, Miss Morgan. But I think we both know I can be more valuable to East Tech from the outside than I ever was from within. Because you can speak truth without fear of repercussions, she suggested. Exactly. My consulting fee is substantial, but my honesty is included at no extra charge. She laughed, a genuine sound, not the practiced corporate chuckle. Fair enough. My assistant will contact yours to set up a preliminary assessment. 1 year ago, I had walked out of that building, believing my professional life was over. Now I had a thriving business, a book with my name on it, and the freedom to choose my own path. The backup lockdown protocol had worked exactly as designed, not just securing East Tech's systems, but forcing a necessary reset. For the company, for the industry, and most importantly, for me. I had created the protocol as a failsafe, a last resort to protect systems too valuable to lose. I never expected to be one of those systems. I never planned to need my own backup and recovery. But that's the thing about good design. It works even in scenarios you never anticipated.